Welcome to Books on Air. I'm Suzanne Harris. Books on Air is a series where we do a deep dive into the writer's passion. We talk about why they wrote the book, what their writing process is like, and what they hope their reader will take away from their book. You, as our audience and listeners, get a real glimpse behind the curtain, if you will. Joining me today is someone I can't wait to introduce you to. It's Dr. Libby McGugan, and she's here to talk about her inspirational book, The Power of the Lemon. Libby, welcome to Books on Air. It is such a pleasure to have you. Thank you for coming today.
Oh, thank you, Suzanne. It's an absolute pleasure to be here and speak with you.
You know, I often start talking about there being 2 books in every book, but that's not where I want to start with you. You've written 3 other books before The Power of the Lemon.
Mm-hmm.
What drew you to writing in the first place, Libby?
Oh, that's a really good question. I think when I first started writing the first novel that I wrote, called The Eidolon, in 2007, and I didn't plan to write it. It kind of landed with me shortly after my dad died, and it's almost like a download of an idea and concepts and characters, and they all just kind of arrived at once. And I don't know, I just sat down and began the process. So it wasn't something I planned. It just kind of happened. Once I'd done the first book, the second book, I still had that excitement, that drive to tell this story and actually to discover it myself as I wrote it. So the second book was similar, the fifth force that kind of unfolded itself. And I would say the same thing for this book, The Power of the Lemon. It just landed. I guess I've been exploring this field and working in this field and learning myself always for a long time now. And the book is really a collection, The Power of the Lemon is really a collection of insights that I've gained through my own experience and through working with other people. So it kind of wrote itself. And I was just the first person to happen to read it, I guess. Yeah.
I like that. You have, of course, described the creative brain. And that's one of the things that I absolutely love about talking to authors, especially authors who have written fiction in the past, because that changes the way that you look at the whole writing process. Let's talk about your book. You said that it just landed. How long did it take you? How long did it take it to land, I guess I should say? But how long did it take you to write?
It didn't take long. I mean, I guess the idea for it, I think it happened in March last year, and it was written and published by September. So it was very quick.
Wow.
It was a very quick process. And like I say, it came naturally because it's something I'm passionate about and I'm very interested in, and I know it's so helpful for people in their lives. So it was just an easy process for me and a really enjoyable process just to allow all this to kind of come out. It takes a roadmap really of expanding into your whole being from the kind of confines of our personal mind into the intelligence of the body, the wisdom of the heart, and you could say the light of the soul. So it helps people expand on this, in this kind of process, I guess you could say, from who they think they are into who they truly are.
You know, I think that one of the things that struck me about the book is that the 2 books that I normally think about, because normally when I'm talking to someone, I'm thinking about, okay, what's the backstory? What made you decide to write this book? And then the process of what the book says, because it's 2 stories. The backstory is a story that usually the reader doesn't know. The story that the reader knows is what the author has chosen to tell them. But when I started to look at your book, The Power of the Lemon, it struck me that those two stories are really so intertwined, you couldn't tell one without the other. Am I on the right track?
Yes, it's so insightful, Suzanne, because it really is a reflection on my own experience, my own learning, and what I've seen, and through my work with other people, and from learning through other people who've been on this journey and explored this part of themselves. So you can't really separate it. It's something that I live now. It's the way I live. I can't see life any other way now. It's so helpful and so practical, and it has been to me in my own life. And like I say, with people I work with, it changes their life when they gain this understanding at a deeper level and learn to work with it. It's a game changer. So the two are very much interlinked. Yeah.
Now, your background includes being a real medical doctor.
Yes,
you're not a doctor of philosophy. You're a real medical doctor. Tell me how a person with the kind of philosophy that you're talking about became a medical doctor, and how those two married together, and how did this all come about that your philosophy developed? Because it seems to me that the science, I know I read about your parents, and your dad was a science guy and your mom was a very philosophical person. And it sounds like their two philosophies would be colliding all the time. And so I thought to myself, she became a medical doctor. How did all of this coalesce so that she is who she is today? Does that make sense?
Yes. No, it's, and I guess that's really been the catalyst for the whole thing, because, growing up, I was pretty confused because my dad was very much, my dad never went to university, but he was very much on a search for truth himself. He wanted to understand the world and how it works. So he turned to science. That was his thing, as a layman. And he learned, he was the most well-read man I've come across, My mum, on the other hand, was very spiritual and had a different philosophy in life. And they just I don't know how they got on, but they did. For me, in the middle, I was looking at both of these ways of looking at life, and I couldn't make sense of it. So growing up as a very young child, I had the sense there was something more. That there was in fact, when I saw the film Star Wars as a 5-year-old, I connected immediately with the idea of the Force. I just thought that makes complete sense to me, and that stayed with me through my childhood. But, you grow up and you get real, and people around you have different opinions, and so you kind of begin to absorb those. And so that kind of faded from, I guess I turned away from that and I turned towards science, because that was the next best thing for me. And I was actually very curious about the miracle of the body. How does the body know what to do? How does it work all these incredible processes out? So it was more of a curiosity that I entered into medicine from. And I spent 20 years as a doctor, 10 of those as an emergency medicine. I think you call it attending consultant, yeah?
Attending physician, yeah, exactly.
Attending physician, yeah. So that was my job I was a medic for 20 years. And I loved it. It was a very humbling job, a real privilege to do that job. And I met incredibly inspiring people along the way. And I think that was one of the things that triggered the change, because I began to notice people who were improving against the odds with conditions that medicine can't cure. And that got my attention. I just began to think, what is it they are doing that's different? And, how are they managing to recover? So eventually I ended up having to step away from my job, because the job's so busy, you just don't have any headspace. So I stepped away from the job to kind of find out more. And I spent several years learning from these people who had come through incredible health challenges. What were they doing differently? What was their approach to it? What was their attitude? What was their mindset? All of that stuff. And then I learned from athletes, high-performance athletes, and just people who had made a success in their life against the odds. Because that was I was curious about the people at the edge of the bell curve of average that you can expect. People at the very edge of that, what are they doing that's different? So I guess that kind of got me curious about what's going on with the human mind. How does that work? It led me into philosophy and physics and into spirituality. And I realised that I kind of came full circle back to where I was as a child, really recognising the wonder of the human spirit. And that's what, it became undeniable to me. So I ended up working in this field because not only is it a wonderful thing to realise, but it's also highly practical and it changes people's lives.
You're so interesting. I know that we have to be careful because I could sit here and talk to you for just hours, I'm sure. I have one pointed question that I have to ask. Do you have siblings or are you an only child?
I'm an only child.
I knew it. I knew it. I knew it. So am I. I could hear the only child talking. I knew it.
Oh, wow, that's really interesting.
I am too. And it just, I could just hear that. I thought, she's got to be an only child, and I've got to ask. There's something about being the only one that is very different. And anyone who has siblings can never understand that dynamic. And we can't ever understand someone having siblings because we don't have any.
Yeah.
I just had to ask.
There you go. There you go. I never even considered that, but there you go.
Yeah, Libby, it just was jumping in my head, and I thought I had to make myself be quiet. I wanted to ask you that question so badly because I thought, this is an only child thinking and talking about this, because as an only child, you are inward focused. I, too, am an inward focused person. And there's so much that goes on in your head. I mean, my head is constantly looking at things and thinking about things and connecting things. I have a connector brain, and I sense that you do too. And it's just, it's very difficult to try to get somebody else to understand exactly what you're talking about if they don't have both of those things, only child and connector brain.
Wow, I had never thought of it that way, Suzanne. But yeah, I guess you do, because you've got more time on your own as a child, so you have more time to contemplate things and wonder about things and ask questions inside you. So yeah, I guess so. I hadn't thought of that.
Well, and you have to be more creative. I mean,
yes, you do.
You have to fill your own time. There's nobody there. I mean, I didn't live in a neighborhood that had a lot of children, so I was really an only child. There, you know, I wound up. I'm a dancer. If you're a dancer for your whole life. It's in your soul. And I would play dress up, and I would do those kinds of things to keep myself occupied, because you have to do those kinds of things, and you have to. I don't remember ever having an imaginary playmate. But did you have an imaginary playmate?
No, I didn't. But I did do dancing for a long time as well, though. So I get you on that too.
Libby, this is really a little frightening.
There you go.
Maybe we're the sisters we should have had here.
Maybe.
This is so interesting. Let's get back to the book. Now, the cover, I just thought the cover was very beautiful. It's a stack of rough stones, and on top, the lemon. Tell me about the symbolism of the lemon. Oh,
I will do. But first of all, I just want to acknowledge my amazing partner, Graham, who took this photograph.
Gorgeous.
So he makes films, and he's an amazing photographer as well. So he took the cover photo, and it was taken on a Barvis beach in Lewis, the Isle of Lewis, in the Hebrides, the Outer Hebrides in Scotland. So it's a lovely time, and it's a great photo. But the symbolism of the lemon, the power of the lemon is, I can take you through this right now and see if you can get a sense of this. But if you close your eyes for a second and imagine you're in your kitchen and you have a big lemon in front of you, a big yellow, juicy lemon. And very carefully, I want you to cut the lemon into quarters. And now I want you to bring the lemon up towards your lips. And I want you to take a big bite. So what do you notice
Well, of
when we
course,
do
your
that.
your mouth immediately begins to salivate.
Yeah.
Immediately.
Yeah. Mine does too, just talking about it.
I know. I've done this exercise too, and it's what causes that? Why do you immediately, when you see you see the juice of the lemon? I'm salivating talking about it too.
Yeah.
But what does it trigger, Libby? Why did we do that?
Well, it's a really powerful illustration of the power of thought, because your body has an immediate visceral reaction to, not to a lemon, because there's no lemon there. There is no lemon. It's to a thought about a lemon. So your body responds instantly and immediately and appropriately as if there was a lemon right there. So it produces saliva. And the power of that is really just to draw people's attention to the power of thought and the connection between your mind and your body, because your body is listening to your mind always. Your cells are listening, and they are responding to the focus of our thoughts. So when you really see that, you begin to be a bit more careful about the focus that you choose, like the thoughts that you choose to send your body, or that you choose to kind of spend your time thinking about, because your cells are listening. And really, part of maintaining good health is not just feeding yourself good food and doing exercise and sleeping well and all those important things, hydrating, but feeding your cells good thoughts, because it does make a difference, and they do respond appropriately, either through functioning really well if they're fed with good thoughts, or deteriorating if we subconsciously send them stressful thoughts. So it's just to really bring that out to people. It's a really practical example. Most people get this response when you describe it, but to show the link that it's real and your body does respond straight away.
That's a perfect way to explain it, and that's a perfect way to illustrate it, because I can't imagine anyone who would not respond that way. I mean, because you have the familiarity already with the object. You have the familiarity with what your body does when you take that piece of lemon and you put it in your mouth. We all know how sour that feels. And so that's such a perfect way to use that. Great. You've got applause. I love the idea. Would you like to share a little part of the book with our listeners?
Sure. There's one line that I think is probably one of the most powerful things I've ever learned. And here we go. It says, "Attention is your superpower. What you give your attention to comes to life. We think we're observing the world. We're not. We're creating it. Whether we create the same things day in, day out is up to us. When we realize we are creating in every moment, we can use our superpower for good. Begin to shift your focus towards what you would prefer to experience for yourself and others, and watch what happens."
Wow. I like that very much. The book is divided into, should I call them chapters? Because they're parts. It's the mind, the body, the heart, and the soul.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess they're chapters, I suppose, yeah.
Could you give the overview of sort of what is covered? Don't give them too much, but I kind of want what is the mind chapter about? Does it talk about what we've been talking about?
Yeah, it really kind of points people, and I guess the way I've written it is just very simple prose. It's an insight on the left page and a little bit of an explanation on the right hand page. So it's a very simple book. It's not a tome. It's not difficult to read. But the mind section is really pointing people to the realization that we are not our thoughts, that thoughts will come and go, to understand the nature of thought is to flow, and that who we are is the one observing the thoughts. And once you make that distinction, you realize that you don't have to buy into every single thought that crosses your field of awareness. You don't have to. It's just a suggestion. It's not a fact. It's just an idea. And that in itself is very liberating, when people realise I don't have to believe that. Particularly uncomfortable thoughts. If it feels good, if it's a good feeling thought and it lights you up and excites you, by all means, dive in and enjoy it. But it's really getting you back to your true place in who you are, that you are the one before your thoughts.
That makes perfect sense.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
Okay.
I think it makes perfect sense. And then the body, obviously what we're thinking, you've talked about that our cells are listening. I have this image, of course, of my little cells having ears. They're all listening to what's going on.
Yeah.
But they do. I mean, if you're thinking it in your head, your body is a closed system. So where do those thoughts go? Well, they go into that closed system.
Yeah. I mean, thoughts are bundles of mental energy. And, when you get down to the root of everything in our world, it's all energy exchanging information with itself. So the body and the mind are no different. And the body, the cells of the body and the system of the body is immeasurably intelligent. Like, it has its own natural intelligence. It just knows what to do. It knows how to beat our hearts, grow our hair, heal our cuts. And we don't have to think about that. So when you consider the magnificence of our human system, like it's got 37 trillion cells in each of us, which you can't imagine trying to coordinate that number of interactions for not just one deadline, but for trillions of deadlines every day for a lifetime. It's just mind blowing to consider what's going on, and recognizing that there is an intelligence that coordinates things that is bigger than our mind. So there's something else in there that we often overlook.
And I hear the overlay. I hear the overlay of your medical training.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, I hear the overlay of the medical training.
Yeah.
But they're married. I mean, that's what makes this so interesting, and so your observations so interesting, because you do have that biological medical training. You understand how we all really work. But at the same time, you're overlaying this with something that's very different. But it all influences itself.
It is, and it's actually all the same thing. Because for years I struggled with this, Suzanne. I had the scientific brain, everything had to be evidence-based, and absolutely we need that for progressing in science. It's an amazing thing. And yet there's something more. And when you begin to look at things, you take a step back and look at all of this, you realise that there is an inherent logic in this whole system that is bigger than just the way that we've traditionally looked at how the body works. It's more than mechanics. It's more than just a collection of cells thrown together. There's something intelligent behind it that knows how to run the system and operate the system and keep it all going. So beginning to look in that direction and working with it is when things begin to change, I think, for people, for the better.
See, I told you we could just talk for hours. We have to. We've also got the heart and the soul. To me, I mean, when you look at the four chapters, the 4 parts, they're just so. My fingers keep integrating. I keep putting my 4 fingers on both of my hands together and thinking about the integration as you're talking about this, because the mind and the body and the heart and the soul all influence one another.
Absolutely. And the thing about it is we've kind of come to a place, especially in Western society, where most of us have spent a lifetime living in our heads, in our mind, and we kind of think that that's all there is, that, it's mental strategy and that's the only way to live. But that's like living in the attic of an amazing house and just never coming downstairs. But when you actually come downstairs, you realise there's all this as well. There's so much more than just our personal assumptions. And I guess what this understanding does is it points people beyond their personal thinking into really their expanded being, which is really a space of wisdom, which I guess is really the basis of the heart space. Wisdom, connectedness, love, authenticity. And you could say the soul space is the part of you that is always already free. So it's not kind of contaminated with doubt, self-sabotage, assumptions, limiting assumptions, all of that stuff that tends to trip us up. Your soul space, or your true nature, if you prefer to call it that, is the part of you that is clear and has access to higher quality thinking and creative ideas, and that knows the best path for you. So it kind of opens you into a part of yourself where it feels like you're coming home to who you really are.
Oh, I like that. I like that very much. You know, we've been talking about, the book is so interesting, and you and I have gone in so many different directions that I know our audience is thinking to themselves, okay, where can I find this wonderful book? Let me give you a little pieces of information. First of all, let me give you the title of the book. It's called The Power of the Lemon, Lemon. It's not spelled any weird way. It's just lemon, Lemon, by Libby, Libby, McGugan, MC capital Gugan. And it's available on Amazon. Now, Libby, I know it's available a couple of other places. Where else could our audience find the book?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the main place, the other place people can find it is Balboa Press, who are the publishers. So they have their own website, and that's a good place to pick it up if you're interested. balboapress.com /The Power of the Lemon. And you'll find it there.
Now, if they want to know more about you, you have a website. Tell me a little bit about the website and give me the web address so they can find it.
Sure. The website is Libby McGugan, my name, .me. So it's very simple. And it's really just gives people an idea of the work that I do with people, and where I've come from. And there's access to an email list if you're interested in getting daily or 3 times a week at the minute emails, just updates and insights. Whenever I have an insight, I share it with the people on my email list, and it's really along the lines of what we've been talking about. So they have access to that, and there's a webinar they can have a listen to too if they're interested on the webpage, and so it's all there.
And there's a photograph of you, and there's a little bio. So if they want to read your bio, There's a little bit of information there. And you're really not doing social media, right?
Not really. I tend to. I love working with people on my email list. I love sharing in that. It just feels like the right environment, because to me, I mean, social media is great, and some people love it. I just find it's a bit scattergun. You're firing your opinions out to everybody, which is fine, but I would rather speak to people who are interested in this. And, if they're interested enough, they'll perhaps join an email list, and then they can get access to kind of daily insights and so on. I would rather speak to people who are looking for this than to kind of preach to everybody. Preaching's not a good thing. So,
yeah, no, you're right. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
It strikes me, and I think that this is actually one of your intents. The Power of the Lemon is a book that if someone in our audience becomes a reader and they pick up a copy of it, and I think they certainly should, and they begin to sit down with it and they start to read the book, they probably won't read it cover to cover, but if they want to do that, they can. But it's the kind of book that you can dip in and out of, and I love it. At one point I read that you said, even if you're having the kind of day where you want to just sit down with the book and hold it and then let it fall open to, quote, any page, then that's a place that you're supposed to be that day and read whatever the message is for that day. I love it that you talked about using the book that way.
Yeah, I mean, I just find that when you live this way, you tend to find that the information you need, the answers you need, will come to you. You don't have to try and figure them out. So you don't have to sit and read this book cover to cover. But if you have a question, or if you're working with something, just try this. Just open the book at any page and see if what's there has something in it for you. But I find that's the way it works for me. So I'm hoping that's how it works for other people too.
I found something that I want to share with the listeners. And tell me if you wrote this. I know you probably did. Look beyond the walls of intellect, of what you think you know, to the infinite spaces of wisdom, to what you don't know yet. Through her gentle guidance, your best life unfolds, and you realize the whole universe is on your side. Did you write that?
I did, yeah.
I think it's lovely.
Oh, thank you.
I think you're a poet. I think you're a poet there in your soul somewhere. There's a poet hiding there somewhere.
That's lovely.
Our time is
the
up.
Is so there's when you begin to just scratch the surface of life, the daily grind, and go a little bit deeper and just open up to the wonder of life, you can't help but speak that way, or look at things with fresh eyes. So that's what I found, that those kind of words come easily once you realize that things are much bigger than we first thought.
I think it's interesting if people will relax and let those kinds of words come. I think almost everyone has poetry in their soul if they'll simply let the poetry bubble to the surface. I think too often people think, poetry is boring, and they think it has to rhyme, and iambic pentameter and Shakespeare and all that stuff. No. Poetry is just sort of, I don't know, maybe the magic of the soul. I don't know how else to put it, because it will bubble to the surface. I find myself, I'm certainly no great poet and would not really share my words with anybody, but I find myself, if I let it, the poetry will just sort of bubble to the surface, especially if I'm just sort of relaxed and letting everything just go. And I look at something that I find beautiful or interesting, or there's always something there that inspires me in the world around me. It's just, you've really brought out the, the philosopher in me today, Libby. This has been so much fun. I'm just delighted that you and I have had an opportunity to talk. But you know how I feel about authors' work, and you know how important I think it is that each author be able to leave the audience that are hearing what you and I are saying with the final words that you as the author would like for them to take away from the work. We've talked about so many ideas. What would you like for that person when that audience becomes a reader and they have that book in their hands and they've either read pieces of it or they've read the whole thing and they close that back cover? What do you really want them to leave with, Libby?
Oh, thank you, Suzanne. I would say you have immeasurable power within you to use for good, to help shape a better world for yourself, for the people you love, and for future generations. So get curious about that. That's what I'd say.
You have been just thought-provoking, inspirational, delightful. I have enjoyed this so much more than I can put into words. Thank you so much, Libby, for being my guest today.
Thank you, Suzanne. It's been an absolute pleasure. I've loved speaking with you. Thank you.
Remember, you can find Libby McGugan's book, The Power of the Lemon, on Amazon. You've been listening to Books on Air, brought to you on the webtalkradio.net platform. You can also hear this podcast on Apple, iHeartRadio, and Stitcher. And remember, keep reading, keep writing, and keep telling your stories. Thank you so much for listening.